I'm beyond excited. I am grateful. I am so proud of myself in different ways, ultimately, and I wanted to share this with you. Welcome back. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Steph. I serve reverence and responsibility through a practice called financial intimacy. And the thing is that financial intimacy, as it's traditionally described, is the conversation between two partners and having them be intimate about their financial world. Because when we look at relationships, the biggest problem that happens in people's world is money, right? And that's often, I think, there's some wild percentage that leads to divorce because of money issues. So financial intimacy already has its own definition. But what I teach is the practice of financial intimacy, which means being intimate and honest with yourself about your financial reality, because it is going to be impossible to be honest and vulnerable and transparent about your financial reality with anyone else if you haven't done it for yourself first. And so what that looks like is looking at our time, our money, our energy, and our use of all three in the creation of our wealth, and looking at how are we actually showing up in our life? How are we truly participating in the generation of resources, in the circulation of resources? And ultimately, that's what I do inside of bank membership. But today, I explicitly want to talk about investing in your nervous system because, okay, so to give you some background, I love to play financial games with myself. And while I have money kind of put away in different pockets that I don't look at, they're in bank accounts I can't see unless I actively go to the bank to look at the balance, playing investment games with myself was a thing that I did this year to really look at what does it take to use reverence and responsibility in the game of investing, right? Like, what does it really look like to take those two core principles of what I teach and integrate it into the investing world? And because I don't teach anything I don't test out on myself, right? And so at the beginning of this year, I had created a Trello board. And I know this sounds geeky and weird, but I created a Trello board. And on that board, I had set myself up some desires, right? I was like, I want a credit score of this. I want this in my emergency savings. I want this in my investment accounts. And I let it just be there. It wasn't something I put a shit ton of attention on. It wasn't something I goalified, meaning I didn't invest more of my time and energy in ensuring that result. I just was aware of for myself that I wanted to see those things be a part of my reality. And so being that it's December 2nd, I was like, it's time for me to go update kind of the whole journey of this year. Part one that I do is I go through every single month and I update what my credit score was that month. And the thing is our credit scores naturally go up and they naturally go down depending on what we're doing in our life, right? So there was times when I would refinance something, credit score would drop, right? I would pay off a line of credit, my credit score would go up, right? So there's just different ways of being with our credit score. And so while I had the goal, if you will, to have a credit score of 800, I also was aware that I have a lot of reasons why that won't happen right now. I was investing heavily in my business. I was renovating a home in British Columbia. So there's lines of credit, there's a lot of different credit accounts, and all of those impact my credit score. But my game is I'm starting from where I was, and previously my credit score was actually quite low. Well, it was fair. It wasn't bad, right? Like it was a fair credit score. And I was like, I just want to increase that. And the thing that happens is when we goalify something like our credit score is that we ignore all of the baby steps that take to achieving that. Right? It's like going to the gym and being like, I want to be able to lift, 50 pounds on my biceps. And it's like, but you can't lift 10 yet. So maybe let's start with 10. And then let's acknowledge when that can go up to 20. And then let's acknowledge when that can go up to 30. And then let's acknowledge when that can go up to 40, because then your next step will be the 50. Your credit score is no different. Your credit score is this thing that when you actively engage with it, you can feel the subtleties of how it increases. And it's completely neutral. No part of your quality of living is attached to the flow of your credit score. And so I went in and I was like, okay, what was it in January? What was it in February? And I literally just updated it. And then I was like, what was the ranking that TransUnion, I believe the name is. What is the ranking that TransUnion gave it? And it was literally, it goes good, 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 fair, fair, good, good, good. Oh, hold on, two more months. Good, good. And when I look at the numbers, I'm like, oh, what happened during that dip? And I can totally see what happened, and it makes complete sense, right? It's like during that dip, was I was using credit because I was super sick and I couldn't sell as much. I couldn't be involved in my life as much. However, like my bills were paid. Like there was no stress otherwise. And so I can accept that dip without it meaning being something more significant about me. And then I look at the end of the year, I'm like, oh my God, my credit score is better than it was last year. Even though it went up and it came down, where I'm ending this year is still significantly better than where I ended last year, which means I've progressed. And this is why we have to look at things a little bit zoomed out when it comes to our finances, because when we start becoming intimate with our financial world, we can get really close and get too caught up in the details. And one of the lessons that I teach in Minted Entrepreneurial Financial Intimacy is that intimacy happens in the details, for sure, but too much detail is a distraction. And so when you are focused on the month to month and be like, oh, my credit score dropped, my credit score went up, you're sending your nervous system into such a subtle reactionary phase rather than being really honest about what the game you're playing actually is. So I can zoom out, but I don't make each month's score significant. So then when I come into December and I back out, I'm like, oh wow, like fuck yeah, I have progressed. My credit score has gotten better, maybe only by a couple points, but also here's the context of my financial reality. Here's what I'm actually going through. And the thing that people get really fucked up about is they compare what their reality is to other people who are living a different reality, a different background, a different upbringing, a different situation, a different everything. And then they use that comparison to beat themselves up. And in the process of beating themselves up around their financial world, they end up with no access to wealth, but tons of money, because you'll end up being like, well, that person has 10 grand sitting in their checking account. So let me not buy what I need. Let me go on nothing. Let me sacrifice so I can ensure that I have 10 grand in that account. The difference is you can have 10 grand in that account without sacrificing yourself in the process. And not everybody can agree with that, and that's fine. But anyways, so I really focused this year on making sure that when it came to these investing worlds, right, the credit score, investment accounts, that I could invest in my nervous system in the process. And so a part of that, so credit score of X was one of the things. Now, did I achieve X? No. But I'm so much closer to it than I was last December. Does that mean anything? No. I progressed. I moved up from the 10-pound weight to the 30-pound weight in a year. I'm so proud of myself. And from now, I can have the motivation and the intention to keep doing what I've been doing with no punishment, no sacrifice. Just keep doing it. Keep going to the gym, baby. Right? And so now I want to move into the next thing, which was that I had this really ambitious desire to have 15 grand sitting in a savings account. And I say it was ambitious because I have no prioritization around having money sitting in a savings account. There was a reality where, December 2022 Stefania was like, oh my God, that sounds great. Let's just have 15K sitting in there. But I am financially intimate. And in that intimacy, there's an honest reality that I would much rather put that money into an investment account than to sit in a savings account earning 2%. There was a part of me that was like, I understand the logic of having money in a savings account because we want to be able, if there's an emergency, right? Like if there's an emergency, we want to have access to that money. And there was just this spot in me where I was like, you know what? If this was 6 years ago, where my nervous system was so tight and so scared and so frigid financially, that would make sense, right? To prioritize a savings account because of there's stability there, there's a guarantee there, but there's not much growth. And unfortunately, when it comes to, well, frankly, anything in your life, if you want growth, you also have to have a capacity for risk. And so as the year started to progress, I would find myself resentful of moving money into a savings account because I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, this doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel supportive to me. It doesn't feel like where I'm at. And this is what makes financial intimacy so fucking personal. Because again, a year ago, it wasn't where I am today. And so as the months progressed, I stopped putting a lot of attention on saving and just started switching over to investing, of putting my money into an investment account. And how I did that is ridiculous, I'll be honest, is I kind of just tricked myself in a dozen different ways. So I'm going to literally tell you exactly what I've done in this last year and why I did it this way. So I'm a firm believer that your nervous system is your wallet, right? So a year ago, like I mentioned, I had a little bit more of a frigid nervous system. I couldn't react to risk. I was very nervous in different ways. And so I did what I could in my nervous system range. And I focused on expanding that range. Come into 2023, my nervous system expanded. I had a lot more room to risk with without losing my sense of myself, without losing my sense of security, without losing conscious participation in my life, right? Like my nervous system was able to hold more risk. And so I think it was about April. Yeah, it was about April when I reached out to my financial advisor and I was like, hey, I'd like to fandangle some things. At the time, I had to consistently put in $100 every month, once a month. And I was like, I want to take advantage of the price fluctuations of my RRSP, which is my retirement fund. And in the US, it's a 401k. For me, in Canada, it's an RRSP. I was like, I want to take advantage of those price fluctuations, which means that instead of buying once every month, I buy twice every month. So I just split it into two $50 payments. But the intention of splitting it up was that 1 month might be $20 per stock, or 1 week might be $20 per stock. And then the next week, it might be 21, right? So it might go up. But then the week after that, it might be 19, right? It's understanding the natural ebbs and flows of investing in stocks and being fucking chill with it, right? Like I'm not price inelastic. I'm not financially frigid where I care about a dollar because this isn't about saving every dollar, right? This is about growth and expansion. And so she's like, absolutely, we can do that. And so we switched it from once a month to twice a month. And as we started doing that, I felt like my nervous system could expand because one, it was less money in one shot coming out of my account. So there was less sensation when I would see that transaction exit. And then when I would go look at like, what am I buying at every month? There was also this fun and this like jovial excitement of like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like that week I totally killed it because I got it at this price without being overly involved, without being overly spending a shit ton of time in it. Because one of the things that they'll say, and you'll find tons of other like financial literacy people who advocate for this, is that you'll find people who are called day traders and their entire day is focused in purely on buying and selling and trying to get the margin, right? So you buy low, you sell high, and like that's what their focus is. The difference is they're investing a tremendous amount of time and energy into being able to take advantage of that. I do not disrespect myself in that way. I have too much life to live. I have hobbies, I have friends, I have family, I have things that I want to be spending my time on. The last thing I want to be doing is freaking out about a margin. Like that's just such a not a good use of my energy, right? So I could reflect back and be excited about what actually took place. I could really receive the reality that I was existing in. And so that was just with my RRSPs. And then I asked her to create a separate TFSA, which is a tax-free savings account that in Canada we have. And I believe, I can't remember the name in the States, but basically it's like any money that's generated in that account is non-taxable until you withdraw it. And so I said, can you create another TFSA? Because I already have one. And that one has about like 60 grand in it. It's not, I don't see it as mine because it's got inheritance in it and we'll unpack that in a different day. So I separated it and I was like, now I want to put all my other like TFSA money into that separate account. So it's like starting fresh, right? No balances. This is just for my 2023 and forward practice of investing. Now the TFSA, the tax-free savings account, you can hold money as cash, right? So that's what makes it just a plain cash account, or you can actually have that money be invested, which means that you can earn dividends and returns and all of these other things, again, non-taxable until you withdraw it. And so we did that. And I was like, okay, I just want to do $50 a month. Let's just put $50 a month in there. Like I want it to be as non-sensational as possible. I don't want to have to be like bracing myself because I'm putting money aside. I want it to be a part of my unconscious autopilot financial world. And when your unconscious autopilot behavior when it comes to your money is of service, when you get intimate and you go back into the details, there is no drama. It's just like, oh yeah, I invest $50 a month. Now, someone else who has a bigger nervous system than I do might have $1,000 that they put in that account unconsciously autopilot doesn't faze them. And this is the thing that we have to understand, and why it's so hard to explain what financial intimacy is to people, is because there is this idea that, oh, if I don't invest $1,000 a month, I'm fucking up. But you're not going to be able to invest $1,000 a month because you haven't learned how to invest $50 a month yet. You haven't been able to learn how to invest $5 a month yet. So your nervous system is too frigid that even if you had the financial means to invest that much, you wouldn't. In fact, you wouldn't put it into an investment because it's too risky, too volatile for your nervous system to be able to handle the risk. So you'd end up moving it and putting it into a savings account. And while that would also support your nervous system and your ability to expand, you're still not expanding your capacity for risk. And that's why you'll hear people saying, like, I don't invest at all. I just put my stuff into real estate or whatever. And that's okay. You don't have to play the investment game if that's not what's true for you. I am just telling that if that's something that you're interested in, and that's something that you feel the desire or the call to do, you got to start where you're at, right? Like, you got to stop comparing yourself to other people and what they do. Start where you're at. And so where I was at, I was like, okay, I'm starting brand new in a brand new account. I want this to be autopilot. $50 is autopilot. I don't even think about it. Like, I got nothing, right? I just started rolling money into there. The thing is that I didn't actually start that new account until about halfway through the year. But that's not the only investments I have. You have to remember, I trick myself in different ways. I trick my conscious mind to create these systems that I can easily follow without too much mental effort. And this is the thing, is that if it requires too much mental effort, your conscious mind will create excuses to not participate in it. And this is why programs like Profit First Accounting are actually really effective, because one of the first assignments in that particular process is create these 5 accounts. 2 of those accounts are going to be at separate banks because you never see them, right? It's creating this relationship where these things can happen without your own intervention of them. I have a Wealthsimple account. Now, Wealthsimple is another Canadian company. They're an online bank. There's plenty of equivalent ones in the US. There's in fact even other better online banks. I just really like their software. So that's why I'm with them, to be honest. Like, I didn't do much comparison. I was just like, oh, okay. They do have a cash savings account that's 4% interest. They have these investment profiles. I can start to play with investing myself, not rather than like an auto deposit into an S&P 500 or whatever, like all of this. And 1 second, I'm just going to log right back in because I forgot an account because I tricked myself. So anyways, I have other accounts with Wealthsimple, not my regular everyday banking account. Now in there, what I first started doing, and I started doing this 2 years ago, was like, I just want to play. I just want to lose $20 in investing and treat it like a gamble, okay? Because one of the things that I find really interesting is the way that people treat investments like they're a sure thing, when like that's never guaranteed. And so in 2020 actually, I started with, they have like a self-managed investment function. And so I started investing a little bit in crypto, not because I give a shit about crypto, but because I was like, fuck it, let's just see. Let's just drop $20 in there. And I could do that and feel complete rightness in myself because, I mean, I looked around and I had people who smoke cigarettes spending $20 a week. People buying weed, spending, I don't even know how much money in a month. People with alcohol, right? Like, I had all of these other vices and I was like, wow, like none of those vices are of service. Yet there is this financial drainage that happens there. So what if I have the same vice, but it is of service? It's of service to something. And so with this self-managed investment account, basically what I did was I fucked around. I just was fucking around and finding out. I invested in Netflix. I invested in Tesla. In fact, I'll even tell you, I'll tell you what I invested in. So I have a crypto account and a trading account, and I've lost a shit ton of money. I'm not gonna lie. But because my orientation to it was, this is like a gambling addiction, I wasn't sad about losing money. I got to look at, okay, why did I buy this stock over that stock? And really look internally at it. And so, you know, some of the things that I have investments in is like Amazon, Coinbase, Disney, Free Gold Ventures, Gold, Google, Meta. Like some of these I don't even give a fuck. Like straight up, I have investments in Pfizer. Why? Why did I invest in Pfizer? Because I know that the society is always going to get vaccinated, you know, like it's just true. Like, it doesn't matter how much I scream for body autonomy. It doesn't matter how much I don't believe in like Western industrial medical systems. There are going to be people who do. So I'll be damned if I don't get a piece of that pie. Like, I'm taking full advantage of human existence. And some people actually don't believe in that. They say it's unethical, right? It's not a values-based alignment. But you got to remember, I'm morally gray. So of course I'm going to invest in it. I even invested in Roblox. So what was funny though, is that there was a couple things that I invested in where I was like, I'm so fucking clear. I want to play that game with these ones. And they were Vanguard, Visa, and the Vanguard S&P 500. I was like, those are the three I want. And I'll tell you, those are the ones that have earned me money. Like, I want you to think for a second, having personal integrity to like, this is what feels true for me, allows you to play a game where even if you lose in that, you win something that no one else could give you. What playing in the self-managed portfolio allowed me to do was trust myself more. Because the ones that I lost the most on, let me go look at it. Yeah, unsurprising. The ones that I lost the most on were Coinbase, Tesla, and Netflix. And so when I go and I look at like, okay, why did I buy them? And why do I feel the way that I do about those losses? Now, Netflix, I still have a weird relationship to this one because I'm like, I still am holding out for the Netflix production to get their shit together and create really good content. But then this last year, they increased their prices. They stopped letting people like share accounts. I was like, that's not the thing that matters. The thing that matters is creating really good TV. And so I'm holding out on that one. So I'm not so disappointed in their losses. I'm like holding out on like the pretense that Netflix is going to make great TV again. You know, when it comes to Tesla, I really did buy into the hype. I don't drive a Tesla. I don't even believe in electric cars. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And so there's a part of me that's like, the reason why I'm like tight or frigid about those losses is because I personally am not connected to why I even bought them. The part of me that bought Tesla was the part of me that was like, I'm gonna miss out. And while we have yet to see the truth of that belief, it was that belief that had me opt in. So until that changes, there's a couple ways I can respond to that reality, right? I can say, fuck it, I'm cutting my losses and I'm gonna sell it. Or I can stay with it and see what evolves, okay? So, and then Coinbase. Coinbase I lost on, and honestly, that one is a little bit similar to like why I bought Tesla. It was like, I don't want to miss out on the hype when this actually expands, you know? So there's a part where we get to see like what version of us bought into those things and how is that version of us relating to it now? Netflix, I'm okay with losing money on because I'm like, they're going to get their shit together. I'm like so clear in my system that they're going to start making good money because they're going to focus on the videos and like the TV that they're making rather than like controlling their audience, you know? Because like I just downgraded my Netflix to a paid with ads because I just don't care. I don't care enough to be without ads. So show me all of the ads. I don't care, right? And so if they're making money off of ad placements more than their membership subscriptions, then I'm cool with that, you know? So that's my self-managed portfolio. And I realized that I didn't even include my self-managed portfolio in my calculations today. So I'm just gonna update that real quick. So give me 2 seconds here as I do that. Whoop. So in my I'll tell you, in my self-managed portfolio, I lost like $400. And I look at that number and there's a part of me that's like, for fuck's sakes, Steph, you know, why did you have to, but then when I go in and I look at the individual stocks, I'm like, yeah, it's a couple dollars off of a bunch of them. It's not that big of a deal. And then in crypto was a really interesting one, right? So the reason why I invested in crypto was, again, like, let's just fuck around and find out. Like, I just didn't care. I mean, I'm up 11% from last month, but I still lost money on it from when I bought, right? Like the ones that I lost the most on, I only have 4. The ones that I lost the most on was Phantom and Phantom and Ethereum. Like actual Bitcoin, I didn't lose that much. Like all-time return, was like a 4% loss. Really nothing crazy. But again, I don't feel upset about the money that I've lost in crypto, even if it was, $115, because that's not what that game was. That game wasn't to get rich. That game was, let me increase my capacity to tolerate risk and let me see who I am when risk is involved, right? And because the self-managed investment portfolio for me was also like, I was treating it like it was a gamble, like it was my vice. That gave me way more spaciousness to let go of the outcome and to let go of the fantasy of investing. Because I think a lot of people, when they look to invest, there is this like fantasy of what they're going to get. And for me, I was like, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of the fantasy. Let's just get into relationship with money leaving my account and potentially losing that money and gaining nothing. And what was funny is that to me, it felt the exact same as when I was growing up. My family really loved scratch wins. Like that was just, to this day, my mom, I think, still likes her scratch and wins. She usually plays Lotto 649, which is like the equivalent to the Powerball, I guess. She still really enjoys it. But like, I remember sitting at my grandparents' house, we would get my nonna the bingos, the scratch and win bingos. We'd get my nonno the scratch and win crosswords. I really liked the crosswords. My mom really liked the crosswords. So when we would buy them, we'd buy like a crap ton and we just sit there playing them. And then if you won, it was exciting. But if you lost, it was like, oh, that's so sad. Like, no big deal. We got another one to play, right? And so as I was doing this self-managed portfolio, I got to have that same kind of experience. Like, oh, I lost. Okay. Oh, look, this one went up. And there was more fun and more levity and vitality flowing through my investments, that my capacity for risk began to increase. I stopped getting scared of losing money because I was the one fully participating in where that money was going, rather than what a lot of people do is they don't want to participate in where that money's going so they can feel victimized about the losses. They can feel upset about the money that they're losing because they really put it in the hands of somebody else to determine that. Like, oh my God, I really expected you to make me rich. And it's like, fuck you, you didn't make me rich. And it's like, oh, I didn't make me rich because that wasn't the game. And that's okay. So when I win, I win. And if I lose, it's okay, right? So let me just add my crypto value there too. Doing a little quick maths here to be able to give you guys the total of what oh my God, this is so fucking cool. Look at me go. Okay. So, remember, I have my traditional bank accounts, my RRSP, my TFSA that I'm playing the game with. I have my Wealth Simple self-managed portfolio of trades and crypto. But Wealth Simple also has this functionality where it's like robo investing, I guess you could call it. They use algorithms to buy and sell. That's basically it. You can opt into like very standard portfolios or whatnot. And so I created a couple different accounts. I have them based on different levels of risk, okay? So I have a highly risky portfolio. It's level 9 and it's designed for growth. So the intention of those kinds of accounts is you expect to lose in the short run because you're not pulling money from that for years and years, right? And so there are riskier bets in there, but it's like high risk, high reward, right? And then I also have another one that's a level 5, so it's more of a balanced portfolio. And then I've got a couple that serve different purposes with like zero risk, just percentage, high yield savings, or very low risk, like kind of sure bet things, but not much return. And the reason why I have separate accounts is because I also have accounts that serve different purposes, right? Like I have one account that is explicit for my home renovations in BC. I have one account that is explicitly used for my breathing fund, which is it's a little different than an emergency savings. And then I have my investment accounts, right? Again, how I tricked myself with these. Oh, and I also have one for my tax savings, right? But it's an investment account. That's why it's a little bit more of a conservative account. Anyways, how I tricked myself was that I made my contributions to my investments as a part of my business expenses. So when you sit with that for a second, I mentally, because I'm a self-employed entrepreneur, I'm a sole proprietor, any money my business makes is mine, right? And so it's really up to me to determine what account's paying for what. Now, at the end of the day, the money that is invested is a part of my salary, if you will. But the way that I trick myself is that no, this is an expense that must be paid. And by making it a non-negotiable, I always ensured that I would have the money to pay it. there was a time where I did not prioritize that, where I didn't trick myself. And what would end up happening is that I didn't have the erectness or the participation in my life to ensure that that got paid. So if I didn't make that money in that month, that would be the first thing that I would be like, oh, okay, I'm just not investing that extra money this month. I would trick myself into the self-sabotaging behavior rather than being like, well, wait a minute. I would never question paying my rent, right? In my business, I would never question paying my platform fees. What has me question paying my investments to? In that shift of like, you make it non-negotiable, something shifted in me. It was just like a part of the game. like literally I had it on my systems, of which I share in Minted, entrepreneurial financial intimacy. I share kind of my background processes of how I trick myself specifically in this. But then my investments into these accounts totally shifted. I started investing a portion of my income every single month. My gross revenue, a percentage, started going into these different accounts. And this is actually, again, this is something that you can use from Profit First Accounting. I do not do everything that Profit First Accounting does. I adapt it to my nervous system, to my capacity. So when I first started this, 1% of my gross revenue always went into my growth investment account, so the highly risky one. Why? Because my nervous system was still getting acclimated to risk. And so 1% of my gross revenue, I was willing to risk like it was no big deal. But if I just arbitrarily said 5%, I would already feel the frigidity, right? Like, oh no, I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna risk, I'm gonna gamble 5% of my gross revenue. What the fuck, right? Again, my nervous system was having this like hypervolatile reaction. And if you do polyvagal theory, you'll learn about the nervous system's response, where like, if it's understimulated, you won't participate. And if you're overstimulated, you'll freeze, right? Or whatever, freak out or whatever. The point being is that there is a range of where you can participate. And this is why I say that your nervous system is your wallet. If you are not keen on focusing on your nervous system, where it is, and then actively expanding it, over time, that capacity decreases. And you can see that, like, just as a simple example, you go look at people who self-isolate in the wilderness. Their capacity, generally speaking, for human interaction decreases. They can't tolerate the bullshit anymore. They can't tolerate human expression because it's so uncontrollable, right? So if they were isolated, they could really control their environment in so many ways. Their tolerance for human risk isn't there. Money is no different. If you don't actively engage with increasing your capacity for income, for expenses, for risk, then the amount you can actually hold starts to decrease. And this is why people often get stuck in like salary-based jobs, because they actually don't have the risk tolerance to become a self-employed person. It's too fucking scary for their nervous system. And this is why I'm a huge advocate of like, if you have the desire to become an entrepreneur of any kind, freelancer, designer, whatever, learn the skills you need to be able to do that while you're getting paid by somebody else. Learn boundaries, learn integrity, learn all of that stuff so you can get it wrong on someone else's dime. But then you are actively working on increasing your capacity so that when you become self-employed, you're fucking fine, right? So anyways, going back to why you're even watching this. A percentage of my income went to my risk. I was actively contributing to my balance profile, my balance portfolio, but then at some point I stopped. I was like, yeah, no, that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel generative. It doesn't feel nutritive for me. And so I just stopped. I just let it sit there, and like it earns cash and it earns dividends, and then it gets reinvested all the time, right? So I think I've earned like $300 from that particular portfolio. Maybe a little less actually from that one. But that one I just don't touch anymore, because there was a part of my nervous system that is like, I'm just not engaged enough there. My risk one, my highly risk one, like it's got me alive within my nervous system capacity. That's a breakdown of all the different accounts I've got and all the ways that I fuck with myself. But anyways, last year I had this desire. I was like, I want 10 grand invested. Arbitrary. There was no reason for that. I was just like, I want to play the game of getting 10 grand invested. I have since updated that, what I started off and what the label of this particular video is. I updated it. The total that I have invested through my tax-free savings, my RRSP, my breathing fund, which is an investment account as well, my owner profit of 1% in a high risk account, my mid-risk portfolio, as well as my self-managed trades and self-managed crypto. The total that I presently have that has been invested, because I focused on my nervous system capacity with the desire of 10 grand, not the goal of it, ends at, I'm gonna actually let you who are joining live to let me know what you think it is in the comment. Because I there's a part of me that is tickled by this. Like, I find it insane. I find it hilarious. And then there's a part of me that's like, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way that I did that. There's no way. And like wants to fight me on it a little bit. But then I look and I'm like, no, like the math is mathing. Like the balance is right there. I've calculated and recalculated, and that's my money, right? Even if I take out my original investment in my RSP from prior years, but at the end of the day, most of doesn't change anything. My intention was 10 grand invested through these particular accounts. So with the intention, the desire of 10 grand, I have ended this year with $19,323.64 sitting in those accounts. This is why we don't goalify when we're looking at financial intimacy. We don't apply goals because they become ceilings. We can say our desire, and then we can design the games so that desire is achievable through the ways that we're operating on a daily basis. But the ways that we're operating on a daily basis aren't tied to the goal. They're tied to the way of being. So who did I need to be the kind of person who had 10K invested? Well, it was someone who was just investing where she was in certain ways, right? The $50 each week, the $100 every month, the 1% on my gross revenue, the 5% of my gross revenue, which was what goes to my breathing fund. Like, all of these things had nothing to do with the 10K, because once I set it and forget it. I was then focused on, how do I be every day? How do I become the person who has that just arbitrarily in those accounts? Now, again, as I mentioned, those aren't my only investment accounts, but those were the accounts that I had my attention on this year. I've got accounts in other banks that I do not see, and they serve different purposes, right? So like, one of those accounts to take care of my parents. One of those accounts is explicitly to repay a loan my mom gave me in my 20s that she doesn't want back, but I have it in a separate account. So whenever she's like, oh my God, things are tight, this happened, I can be like, here you go. Right? I play these fucked up weird games with myself. So this year, 2023, I was just focused on these fucking 8 accounts. Just had my attention on them. What needs to move where? Not because I was focused on the balance. Not because I was focused on the goal, the end game. The end game was just a step along the way. It wasn't the finality of it. And part of the reason why I really don't believe in financial goals is because of this. You end up focusing on like, how do I get that number? All of your energy, all of your resources go towards that, instead of how do I be the person where that is just a byproduct, right? 10K invested became just a byproduct of what I was doing here. And here's the crazy thing. It's December 2nd. This month, I still have my 1% investment from whatever I make in gross sales. I still have my 5% in whatever I make in my gross sales to go to my breathing fund. I still have my $100 to our RSP, my $100 to my TFSA. I still have those happening this month. So I'm going to end 2023 beyond the 19 grand. Like, that's the crazy thing, is I doubled what my intention was because I focused on my way of being. I invested in my nervous system. I focused on what is the daily activities that are within my range to show up this way. 18K, put away, real easy, because it didn't have my conscious intervention of it. I wasn't consciously battling shit and making up stories and battling my inherited and ancestral belief systems about having money put away, right? Because let me tell you something. Because I'm renovating a house in BC, and it's such a drain on my resources in so many different ways. Like, I'm gonna have to buy another stove because I have a renter in there and the stove blew up. Like, there's so many things that go into that there was a part of me that's like, all of my resources have to go into that house, all of them. There was like this part of me that was like so convinced. And then there was another part of me that was like, no, we need to pay off all the debt. But here's the thing is my debt got paid, and so did I. The idea that you have to focus 100% of your energy on one area means that all of these other areas have to be abandoned in the process. And this is why, and you'll hear financial advisors talk about this and financial literacy coaches talk about this, is like, we're better off investing $20 a month in our early 20s than we are investing $500 in our 30s. Because stocks investing is a game of time. In fact, money is the byproduct of your relationship to time and energy. That's what investments are. And the more that I play this, the more that my teachings even smack me in my own face, because I'm very clear that your relationship to time, money, and energy is what creates wealth. You could have all the money in the world, but you've got no time, no energy, you're broke as shit, right? And so investing is such a beautiful extension of that, because if you have no relationship to time, you're going to look for the big wins, the quick wins, the hot and fast, two pump chump in the bed in the bank kind of energy. You want it fast, you want it now, you want it just how you like it. And that never works, because wealth is a slow game. But if you are someone who cultivates a relationship with time, who cultivates a relationship with your own pace, that honors your nervous system, that honors every aspect of you, who you are, and the life that you live, everything gets handled. It's a very feminine approach to finances, don't get me wrong, but it's also very much rooted in reality. See, I don't teach like abundance, because abundance is a byproduct of you honoring what's true about scarcity. You can't deny the truth that lies in scarcity just because you prefer abundance. There is a truth there, and that truth is that this dollar matters, that this moment matters, that the energy you got today fucking matters. And so if you don't act like those matter in your life, then you'll disregard that and you'll be like, I'm just gonna focus on abundance and just receive and receive and receive. Meanwhile, you've got a financial hole out the fucking wazoo because you're not keeping your patterns in check. You're not keeping your embodiment in line. You're not doing the things that are required for you to keep money circulating in your world, for you to keep time alive in your world, and for the energy that is within your body to be totally in flow. And ultimately, I'm not quite ready to teach my approach to investing quite yet. I want to give myself another year and fine tune, what are the lessons specifically that I've learned, and what am I still working on, and what are the things that I'm seeing within my own nervous system. I'm still going to be working on that. But I think it's hilarious, not gonna lie, I think it's fucking hysterical that through the things that I teach inside of bank membership, literally, that's all I focused on was my nervous system, is it reverent and responsible, and how am I showing up in my present embodiment? Those three fucking things. When I focused on that, I went above and beyond what my original intention was with this investment game to begin with. That to me is hysterical. It's so fucking weird. And so if you're interested in coming into bank membership, you're going to learn the teachings and the philosophies that you can go ahead and apply to your investments. You can take it on, because bank isn't about giving you what you can find on fucking Google. If you want to learn financial literacy, you can literally learn it anywhere for $0 on the table, right? There's nothing stopping you from receiving the content and the information you need. But when it comes to financial intimacy, it's a philosophy that you are integrating into your life. And when you integrate this philosophy, you will see things shift, right? And it is a new way of looking at things. It is a different way of looking at things. Don't get me wrong. It's fucking weird sometimes. But if you are someone who gives a fuck about your time, money, and energy, and you want to ensure you've got plenty of all three, and you don't want to disrespect yourself in the process of having more of it, then this is probably the path you want to be walking. And if you're not ready for bank membership, then you want to come into the piggy bank, which is an intro to financial intimacy that gives you 4 very key philosophies and cornerstones that even if you didn't come into bank membership, you could repeat ad infinitum for yourself and change so much in your world. That in the piggy bank specifically, and how it can relate to investments, is you're going to start to see that the risk that you're tolerating already might actually not be honoring of your nervous system, but because a younger part of you likes the volatility. It likes the drama. It likes the intensity. So these are the kinds of people who are going to be investing in very hyper volatile, risky investments in hopes for the big buck. It's usually a very young adolescent part of you, not the mature, reverent, self-honoring adult that you are. And so if you're interested in joining the piggy bank, you can let me know in the comments and I'll send you a free masterclass so that you can feel into if the piggy bank is right for you. Ultimately, I recommend people do the piggy bank before they come into bank anyways. Even if you've done piggy bank once before, doing it again is always helpful. But piggy bank is such a essential piece to your journey inside of bank, because if you do bank and you do not have your inner teen in fucking check, you are going to find out exactly why you have an adolescent income and an adolescent debt load and an adolescent savings balance and an adolescent expense level, right? Like we need to have that younger adolescent self in check and put in the appropriate places in our lives before we can even begin the path of reverent wealth, before we can even begin practicing financial intimacy, before we can even begin operating from a place of reverence and responsibility that honors our embodiment, our life, and our nervous system. Listen, this work isn't for everybody. I'm really fucking clear. Like, there are people who try to convince me the work's for them, and I'm like, it's really not. I don't want your money if the work's not for you. But when the work is for you, it can be extremely transformative. And I say that from my lived experience and my lived practice of what it is I tell people to take on for themselves. And the thing is I don't know with you how much more you could expand, right? Your nervous system might expand a lot more rapidly than mine. Your healing journey is going to be at your own pace. So don't even think that mine show you what's possible. My results or my outcomes from implementing this work only show you what was possible for me, not for you. We don't know yet. And the beautiful thing about that is that you could take these philosophies and teachings and go fucking miles further than I have. And so if you want to know that for yourself, if you want to discover it for yourself, then come join me. I have the door is always open. If you want a complimentary consult to see what is most of service for you, by all means, send me a message. My door is always open for those who really want to have reverence and responsibility in their lives. Okay? So I am going to leave this here. If you've been tuning in live, what I would love for you to do is send me a direct message about what really landed for you inside of this live stream. I think it's so important that we digest. If you have questions, again, you can feel free to send me an inbox message for that as well. Otherwise, I look really forward to working with those of you who feel called to this work. Okay? I'll talk to you later. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below sharing what you're taking away from this conversation that you get to use in your everyday life. If you want to dive deeper into the world of self-discovery that directly impacts your wallet, head over to financiallyintimate.com to discover my different programs and experiences. But if you have a specific question or topic you'd like me to cover, just let me know in the comments or reach out to me on social media at bank.membership. Remember, building financial intimacy is about discovering the truth of who you are so you can have the wealth you desire without sacrificing yourself for it.